Sarah crept into the house, her pulse still racing from her clandestine meeting with Alex. The clock on the wall glowed faintly, past midnight. She slipped off her shoes, careful not to make a sound, when the familiar rumble of the garage door startled her. Mark was home late again. Her heart skipped a beat, not just from the thrill of her secret, but from a flicker of suspicion about her husband's own whereabouts. She smoothed her hair, took a deep breath, and plastered a smile on her face as he walked through the door. "Hey, you're late," she said, her voice casual but her eyes searching his face. "Yeah, work was a nightmare," Mark replied, avoiding her gaze as he tossed his keys onto the counter. He smelled faintly of cologne, too much cologne for a long day at the office. Sarah nodded, but the seed of doubt had already taken root. Over the next few days, that doubt grew into something darker. Mark was different. He was always on his phone, smiling at messages he didn't share with her. He'd started wearing that cologne she'd bought him years ago, the bottle that had sat untouched until now. One evening, while he was in the shower, Sarah rifled through his jacket pockets and found it. A crumpled receipt from Le Petit Bistrot, a romantic little restaurant they hadn't visited together in ages. Tucked behind it was another slip, a hotel booking for the Grand Hotel, dated for a night he'd claimed he was working late. Her stomach churned. Was he cheating on her? The irony wasn't lost on her, she was hardly innocent herself, but the thought of Mark with someone else ignited a fire of anger and guilt she couldn't extinguish. Meanwhile, Sarah's own secret was consuming her. Her affair with Alex had started as a flirtation, a distraction from the monotony of her marriage, but now it was a full-blown obsession. She'd meet him whenever she could, always careful to delete his messages, "Can't wait to see you tonight," and clear her browsing history. But the thrill was tinged with shame, and now, with her suspicions about Mark mounting, she felt trapped in a web of her own making. She couldn't let it go. She hired a private investigator, a gruff man named Detective Smith, to follow Mark. A week later, he called her with the news. Mark had been spotted with a woman at the Grand Hotel, laughing and leaning close. The confirmation hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. She sat on the couch, staring at the photos the investigator emailed her. Mark with some brunette, looking happier than he'd been with her in months. She was furious, heartbroken, and, worst of all, hypocritical. That night, Mark came home late again, his tie loosened and that damn cologne wafting around him. Sarah couldn't hold it in any longer. She stood in the living room, the receipt and hotel booking clutched in her hand, her voice trembling with rage. "Mark, I know about your affair," she blurted out. "I have proof." Mark froze, his eyes widening. "What? Affair? Sarah, what are you talking about?" "Don't lie to me," she snapped, throwing the papers onto the coffee table. "I had you followed. You were at the Grand Hotel with her. Who is she, Mark?" He stared at the evidence, then at her, his expression shifting from shock to realization. "Her? Oh, you mean Jenna. Sarah, she's the travel agent. I was planning our anniversary trip." Sarah's anger faltered. "Anniversary trip? But the receipt, the dinner, that was for us," Mark said, his voice softening. "Le Petit Bistrot, the hotel. It was all a surprise. I wanted to take you away, just the two of us. I've been meeting with Jenna to get everything perfect." The room spun. Sarah's knees felt weak as the weight of her misunderstanding crashed over her. She sank onto the couch, tears welling up. "Oh, Mark, I'm so sorry. I thought, and I..." Mark sat beside her, concern creasing his forehead. "What is it, Sarah? What's wrong?" She couldn't look at him. Her voice broke as she confessed. "I've been seeing someone too. I'm so ashamed." The silence that followed was deafening. Mark's hand, which had reached for hers, dropped to his side. "You..." "What?" he whispered. "It was a mistake," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I was lonely, and I thought you didn't care anymore. I thought you were cheating, and I messed everything up." Mark stood, pacing the room, his face a storm of emotions. Shock, hurt, betrayal. How could you, Sarah? After everything. I don't know, she sobbed. Can we fix this, Mark? Can we try? He stopped, staring at her as if seeing her for the first time. I don't know, Sarah. I need time to think. I wanted to save us with that trip, but now, I don't know what we are anymore. The days that followed were a blur of silence and distance. They moved around each other like ghosts. Mark sleeping on the couch, Sarah crying herself to sleep. One afternoon, as she packed a bag to stay with her sister for a while, she found an old shirt of Mark's in the laundry, a faint lipstick stain on the collar. Her lipstick, she realized, from a morning months ago when she'd hugged him goodbye. The bitter irony made her chest ache. Their marriage had unraveled not because of Mark's infidelity, but because of her own mistrust and mistakes. As she left the house, suitcase in hand, Sarah glanced back at Mark standing in the doorway. Neither of them spoke, but the question hung in the air. Could they ever rebuild what they'd lost? She didn't know the answer, but as she drove away, she couldn't help but hope that time might show them the way.